Hi, this is Sonia Castillo from Midland Moms on a Mission, and today we're going to put out a podcast about something that's been a very fiery and passionate issue in Midland, especially this week: school safety. This issue actually has been on Midland Moms on a Mission agenda for quite some time, and it's actually been brought up numerous times within the district, but recently in the news there's been a lot of buzz around a specific incident. So we're putting out this podcast to discuss some of those issues with you. And today I have a guest, KVasquez, and she's been a longtime member of Midland Moms on a Mission for almost a year now.
Yeah.
And she is an advocate within the community. She has children in MISD, and she is a working mother. So she kind of represents a lot of the things and has a lot of things in common with a lot of us. So I'll let her give a brief background on who she is.
So my name is KVasquez. I have been in Midland Moms on a Mission for just over a year. I had some other people at our campus that sort of pointed out the group to me, which is why I chose to join. I had heard that there was just this group that had been formed that was really focused on making some positive changes in MISD. I've been a part of the school education system here for 4 years now, so there's definitely some things that I have recognized that need to be addressed and need to be changed, and so I was definitely excited to be able to participate with a group and just be able to talk to some other parents and see what other parents were thinking and feeling and create sort of a conversation with that. And my husband and I own a cleaning company and have lived in Midland for about 15 years now. So I think that this school safety is a huge, important topic, especially talking about it this week with everything that's happened most recently in MISD.
And just a little side note, I have my 3-year-old with me today during this podcast because I too am a working mother. And so if you hear some background noise, I apologize. Or some, "Mommy, I need help."
It's called #MomLife.
Yeah, that's what it is. You try to get done everything you can with your little one around you. And today we're coming live from the Midland Centennial Library, which is located right next to Best Buy. And we're actually using one of their media rooms, and it's pretty phenomenal. All of the equipment they have in here. So I just wanted to give them a little bit of a shout out and thank you for letting us use their room for this podcast.
Absolutely.
So we'll move right into it. And by the way, my background, I've made a few podcasts before, but for those of you that are new, I've been with Midland Moms on a Mission for over a year now, and I'm an administrator, and I'm a passionate ex-teacher from Midland ISD. That's kind of what got me involved. And this coming August, I too will have a child in MISD. So trying to be involved and make sure that I'm participating in decisions that affect my child. Okay, back to school safety. So let's talk about the meeting that happened this week.
Yes, the Concerned Citizens meeting.
Because I feel like it'll lead us into the actual incident.
Correct.
A group of parents and concerned community members met this week. It was not organized by Midland Moms on a Mission. It was organized just by concerned citizens, and Kristen attended the meeting.
I did, yes, and there were some members from Midland Moms on a Mission, and surprisingly, there was actually a school board member there as well, which I was very pleasantly surprised by that. It was facilitated by the owner of the Midland Moms blog, and it was kind of just shoot from the hip. I mean, I think there was maybe only a 24-hour notification, and there was maybe about 10 to 12 citizens that arrived right before the hailstorm, so that definitely, I think, might have deterred some people from attending. But it was a great meeting, I feel like, where people were just able to come together and talk about not only what they were bothered by, but also potentially solutions. So obviously we can't change what happened at Abel. That's that situation. We can't change how it was handled. We can't change what happened. But moving forward, the goal is maybe some policy change is what needs to happen. Is that MISD claims that they follow policy and procedure in certain aspects. Well, maybe we just don't approve of their policy and procedure. And as citizens, I think that coming forward and using our voices and offering that opinion and potentially offering some suggestions for change might mean that these situations get handled in a way that we as community members actually agree with and find appropriate. So does everyone pretty much know what happened at Abel?
So that is perfect, moving us into the incident that occurred. And Kristen and I have both been in contact with Jennifer Carpenter, who was the originator of the complaint against Abel. And so we are providing you with facts today. This is not stuff that's been posted online. This is not hearsay. This is actual information that we have obtained and seen from the source itself. And I've actually seen all the documents, the police reports, the grievance file, clear about the information we're presenting today.
Right.
So let's talk about the incident. And it happened at Abel on April 15th.
Correct. So Jennifer's son, I'm not going to say his name, has a group of friends, and within those friends, there was one particular friend who for some time had very concerning behavior and very concerning comments. And there came a point in time that he chose to start documenting, which it's been about a month, he's chose to start documenting some of the comments that his friend was making. He was not sharing with his mom that he was documenting this stuff. And mind you, as these months have progressed, Jennifer, as a parent, was concerned about the friendship that her son had with this particular student, just because she could see that it might not be the most positive relationship, and she definitely voiced those concerns to her son. So Jennifer came home from the school board meeting on Monday, and her son started a conversation, and he confessed to her that he had all of this information that he had documented. And so she made him show it to her, and it was particular incidents that were date and time stamped. There was even like screenshots and things like that of stuff that this kid had said, and they were all very, very alarming and disturbing. And even the things that I have seen and heard and read, I'm surprised that a 14-year-old would even know some of the things to say.
Some of the words, some of the terms, some of the phrases were
yes,
extremely offensive and very concerning.
There was direct threats made against particular students. There was direct threats made against his own parents, against particular staff members at the campus that he was at, and all for various reasons. I hate math, so I'm gonna quote unquote have, this is my action. And it's things that as parents, it is shocking. So Jennifer immediately contacted the school the very next day, and they implemented what they called an investigation. So they pulled students because there was other friends in the group that had heard these comments. So they wanted to substantiate Jennifer's son's claims, and they brought all of these students in to sort of tell and share their story. And they all had similar scenarios with this particular student. So they then pulled, and mind you, this student was not in any kind of isolation, was not removed from campus while they were talking to these students. And that's been confirmed by multiple students that have told their parents that they still saw this kid at school. So this was last week. So they then pulled the student in to talk to the student and his parents. And after they've had whatever conversation they had, he walked out of that meeting and approached his friends and made a statement to them that was caught on video that said, "Hey, did y'all hear I'm the next Columbine shooter?" and kind of laughed about it. And so that video was then shown to the principals, and that's when the principals took action and apparently suspended the student. Now, mind you, Jennifer was trying very hard to follow all the steps and procedures. I know that she contacted Mr. Riddick. I know that she contacted members of the school board and let them know what was going on, as well as tried to keep in touch with the principals at the campus.
And even the principal superiors. I know that.
Correct.
Mr. Horner, she contacted as well.
Correct. And I think a big thing too is, Jennifer would ask, like, I need to know when the student's coming back. I need to know what's happening, what's moving forward, because I'm concerned about the safety of my child. And never did, at this point, this campus was not sharing any information with any parents, not with any of the teachers that were directly targeted in his comments and his statements. They were uninformed. And she waited to release her statement on social media until the student came back. Okay, so essentially, that was when the student was removed, is after he, made his joke, and once after this very small suspension, Jennifer, once it was confirmed that he was back on campus, she chose to remove her child from the school, and then that's when she chose to release her statement. And the statement being shared on social media was essentially what caused, I wouldn't say caused, but I mean, as a parent, when you read something like that and your child attends that campus and you have not been informed of any of this, that's pretty shocking, and that's not acceptable.
Well, it's not acceptable as a parent, but it's also not acceptable in the eyes of Texas.
No.
Because it's against the law now. New legislation from Abbott came through this year, where if a student makes a terroristic threat, they are to be removed from the campus and investigated by mental health authorities or support.
And so on that so what constitutes a terroristic threat? Because that was essentially a statement that was made by MISD. So MISD was having I believe a budget meeting on Tuesday of this week, or Monday. Was it Monday or Tuesday?
It was Tuesday.
Tuesday. So they already had a meeting set in place, and after a lot of the communication that Jennifer was having with school board members, they requested an emergency closed meeting regarding this topic. Jennifer was not allowed in that meeting. Neither was her student. She was not allowed to show any of the documentation or proof. They did have the principal and the police chief in that meeting, and they were all able to speak privately. So one of the statements that MISD released was that they looked into this situation and it wasn't credible. It was not a credible threat. But because of the social media post that they wanted to remove the student from the campus indefinitely to protect him. Well, here's the thing about what is quote unquote credible that we've now found out. So for a threat to be considered a credible terroristic threat, your student or anybody on campus has to say that I was in fear of my life. So it doesn't matter what he said, essentially. It matters what the reaction of the people listening said. So it even with the shocking comments that he made, they're considering it not credible because the students that heard the statements were not saying that they were in fear of their life. But on that same token, having sat in on the interviews that were conducted with the students, they were asked by people interviewing them, you weren't scared of your friend, were you? You weren't really in fear of your life, were you? And so the questions were very leading. And these are impressionable, 13, 14-year-old kids.
Well, and I would even argue that because they're impressionable and they may not understand the severity of a threat, they may not immediately be scared and say, I feel like my life is being threatened, because they don't understand what it means.
Correct.
They're children, right?
Yes.
And so we're leaving school safety back in children's hands. That's where the adults should be involved in this.
I agree 100%.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the truth of it. And I have a problem with the definition of credibility when it comes to leaving it in the definitions of a child, because they may not understand to the full extent how threatening or dangerous that comment may be.
Absolutely. And I think that we all have to keep in mind that these these are kids, and putting that responsibility on them to be able to classify what is a real threat and what isn't. I don't approve of that. I don't approve of the way that they ask the questions. I think that there's nothing wrong with saying, how scared were you? Were you scared? Did you believe what your friend was saying? As opposed to, you didn't really believe it, did you? That's just not an appropriate question to ask. I think that is very leading, and it's a little bit manipulative in my opinion.
Sure.
I just don't think that that's the right way to handle
Lawyers
it.
are not allowed to use it in the courtroom. It's against the law. So you cannot lead a question like that. So
right. So why are
those same tactics being used by like our higher ups,
people that we're putting in charge of our children?
Exactly.
And that we're supposed to trust with our children.
Here's a point that when you brought up Jennifer and kind of the hoopla that's been made about this situation, I feel like sometimes Midland ISD underestimates the power of moms, and also too, like, parents.
Absolutely.
And that parents want to be informed, and they're educated, smart people. And I feel like there's a disconnect between the MISD administration and them underestimating, well, they won't catch it, they won't understand, they won't see it.
Absolutely.
And you have very smart, able minds that are the parents of the children that go in this school system. And I feel like they underestimated Jennifer.
I feel sometimes, well, a lot of the times, that MISD has this mindset of, you have to blindly trust me. I am in this position and I know what I'm doing, and you just have to understand and have faith in me. When, as has been shown in the past, I've been attending school board meetings for a year now, and I try to be very involved in MISD, and it seems like sometimes their words and their actions don't match.
Sure.
And so I think a big thing, even tied in with school safety, is, do we trust our officials at MISD? Do we trust them? Because I can say I don't trust them. I can't listen to what somebody says, and there's like, it's honest. I'm telling you, it's honest. To hear, in Jennifer's situation, to hear all of the discrepancies in the timeline, to hear the discrepancies in her experience and what they're saying her experience was. And this is removing feelings. This is not, well, I felt like this. This is simply just timeline stamps and and facts. That makes me completely lose my trust. Even what little iota of trust I might have had in MISD, I lose my trust and my faith that they're people that there needs to be some accountability put back into them.
There sure does. And I think that we live in a culture today where there is a lot of social justice, that people are not sitting by anymore watching a system like run them over or lie to them or provide fallacies, that they are taking control of their lives and how they interact with these systems. And they're using social media, they're using their connections to the community to bring all that to the forefront. So I think even 10 years ago, where this might have been swept under the rug and we wouldn't have been able to hear about it, now it's a very different story. That there are little eyes always watching and trying to listen. Absolutely. And they should be aware of that. They should. That they sit in a position where they're paid over six figures, most of them, and they should be accountable, and they should be aware that we're listening.
I think too, it was actually great having Mr. Kennedy that came to the meeting, the Concerned Citizens meeting.
Yeah, we're going to call it the Concerned Citizens at this point because it's not affiliated with any organization in Midland at this point. Yeah.
If you have a kid in MISD and you're worried about what you're hearing, come on out and let's talk about it. And so one of the questions, when, especially the timeline, because Mr. Kennedy was obviously, he was in a position where, hey, I can't share everything with you, but the things that I can share, I obviously will, and I'll answer your questions. And he sat there for an hour answering questions that were being shot at him from 10 or 12 different people. And one of the questions that was asked by a dad was, hey, I really want you to look into the timeline of this, look into this situation and see where there's some discrepancies. And so on that same token, my question to him was, what if you are to pinpoint who is creating the discrepancy, and it's somebody through central office, if it's somebody through a particular campus, what are the repercussions for that? Because if we're discovering that people that are in charge of taking care of our children's education and our children's safety are not being forthright and honest in what experiences are happening at our campuses, then there needs to be some accountability. Something needs to happen with the people that are choosing to not be truthful.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a question that was asked of him, and he honestly said, I don't know.
Yeah.
There was plenty of times when he would say, I don't know the answer to that. I honestly don't.
And you and I have had this conversation before about checks and balances in our system.
Absolutely.
And we would love to see some sort of checks and balances for those people in central office, because what does happen if they have had a bad performing year where they've made a series of bad decisions? We don't know. We have no idea. They get their contract renewed, or they stay on another year, and there's really no input from the community in order to make sure that they're doing their job. And if they've messed up, that maybe this isn't the position for you.
Right.
And we don't know anything that goes on, and so we sit, like, they expect us to sit idly by and just trust these individuals. And so we definitely want to see some sort of checks and balance system go on when it comes to central office.
Absolutely. There was a conversation that started about the grievance process, because that was something that a lot of people that have been in a grievance process, which I'm sure there's been conversation in this group a lot about the grievance, that they don't really like how it's handled. Simply stating this: so if I have a complaint about my principal at my campus, I have to file a grievance with my principal, and my principal has to sit down with me in a meeting and talk about my grievance, and then my principal gets to decide what the outcome of that grievance is. I mean, that's like going to your dad because you want to complain about your dad grounding you, and then your dad says, tough luck, you're still grounded.
Well, here's the thing. They veil this whole idea in policy, black and white policy, that they have filed away in their little online library. But the truth is that they have humans working the system from behind, right? And what are the chances that you're going to get a boss that's not going to be biased against themselves and not turn this in, and even furthermore retaliate in some way?
Absolutely.
Because these are humans. And they're trusting these humans to behave in a non-biased way. And the truth is that system does not work. It shouldn't, I agree with you. If you have a grievance against a principal or whoever you're filing it against, and you have to go through the chain of command, it should not go into the hands of the person
that you're filing the complaint against.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
It is.
It's complete.
Asinine.
Yeah, it is. It's complete nonsense. And it seems like this is an antiquated system. Like, this is old. I mean, I was a child of the 80s at NMISD, and I'm pretty sure this probably was around in the 80s.
Probably.
This policy, this grievance policy.
And I think one of the things that was really adamant at this meeting is like, okay, so we say that we're not happy with the way certain situations turn out, and we're not happy with the policy. So let's change that. And one of the best ways to change it, number one, is to get organized, is to decide what are things that we want to see different, and how do we express that to the people that are in charge of implementing these policies. So showing up to school board meetings is a big one. I can tell you that I've attended almost all the school board meetings. There was two that I haven't attended in the past year just because of something like sick kids.
I've missed 2 this year.
And the majority of school board meetings is all of central office, a bunch of people from Midland Students First, and a couple of people from Educate Midland. And they're all in their little cliques, all talking and cheering and hugging each other and, giving high fives to one another. And it's a little cliquish, but there's not a lot of people from the community to give them their opinion about things. I think that the public forum that is allowed at school board meetings is an underutilized tool.
Sure, yeah.
I think that we can all complain about the grievance process and how that information gets to the school board, and we can complain about the inconsistencies with that. But if you show up to those school board meetings and you sign in to use the public forum and you use your 3 minutes in a respectful but assertive way, I think that you can see change.
For sure.
And I think if it's consistent, if you've got more than one parent that is coming up there and they all have similar concerns, they have no choice
but to hear you.
Yeah. And to help make change. Because the thing is in my experience with MISD, I feel like if you don't talk about it, it's not a problem. So let's just not talk about the bad stuff. And so by going to the school board meetings and using the public forum, which is posted on YouTube and it gets publicized, they have no choice but to address it. They can't pretend, they can't feign ignorance that, oh, we didn't know that was an issue. They have
it's public
to
record
it.
At this point, like it's videotaped. There's always a lot of media that are at school board meetings waiting, and I think a lot of times the media has been our friend in helping resolve some of these issues, because fortunately, and I'm gonna give a plug to Stuart Doreen here. Yeah. He runs a very, very tight ship when it comes to his publication and making sure that no stone is left unturned.
It's very unbiased.
And he's unbiased, and he is he makes sure that the news reporting is factual, and he sends reporters in person to get those facts.
It's so easy to watch a news report and see that it's and unknowingly know that it's catered to a certain group, or that it's showing a certain group in such a positive light. And in no way, fashion, or form do I think that anybody that sits on that school board doesn't want good things for the kids. They want good things for the kids, but also they definitely want to be portrayed in a positive way.
Right.
Especially the man in charge wants to be patted on the back a lot and told how wonderful he's doing. And a lot of times that I notice, just having dealt in email exchanges with Mr. Riddick, is that his words and his actions don't match. A lot of the times they don't match. That doesn't mean that I don't think he doesn't want what's best for the kids. I just think that they have unrealistic expectations about what the community expects from them. And I think that as community members, we need to come forward and say, here's what we want. There was another question that was posed too, talking about school safety, asking what is it that our counselors are actually providing at our campuses? Because what are they, licensed or educated in doing? Because it doesn't feel like, at least in our experience, it does not feel like our counselors are offering a ton of emotional support. And I think these are, growing up is hard, and I think that you have all these feelings that you're not used to, and sometimes you don't know how to handle those feelings, and then you add social media onto that any mistake that you make can be posted for the whole school to see, and and that situation is never dropped. And so these kids go through a tough time. So what is it that our counselors are able to provide, and what is it that they are providing? Because it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of emotional support that they offer.
And I'm just being forward thinking and just, giving ideas, but I would love to see on our MISD campuses, especially at middle school and high school. Mm-hmm. And, right now, I'm a social media manager for a company, and so I understand the force of social media. Yeah. It brings in so much money, and so that same force is now being handed over to our children, and they're in their little palms. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine what happens when it's misused.
Exactly.
And so I would like to see group therapy and groups meeting after school to deal with either self-image problems or bullying, or not feeling like you're not part of a group, like you're a misfit of some sort. All of these have emotional problems tied to them, and our mental and emotional health is so important.
Absolutely.
I think even now it's a very cutting edge science that we're learning how much our mental health affects our entire lives. And so I just really would like to see more initiatives for counseling and mental health in our school systems.
Right, because I feel like when I hear the word counselor, I think of therapist. I think of somebody that these kids can talk to about their feelings, what they're thinking, and sometimes it's not easy to get that information from kids. Sometimes there are days that maybe they don't want to participate in that, and there are days that perhaps they are a little bit more forthcoming. So what type of schooling do our counselors have? Maybe MISD needs to focus on hiring a mental health professional that can float from campus to campus or can have monthly meetings with counselors to give them advice, because I can say from personal experience that my kids have struggled with this year with their emotions. They're not getting any support from the counselor at our school.
Or maybe perhaps Midland ISD could use their business, that they are a business entity in our community, and partner up with, like, say, centers.
Yeah.
And centers after school, like once a month, has group therapy, or like, I'm just throwing ideas out there to
Absolutely.
like help resolve the lack of counseling presence on our campus, because in reality our counselors are not just responsible for the mental health of our children, they're also in charge of like scheduling.
Yeah.
And like when there's new students and they have to deal with like overflow and too many children in one class and schedule changes.
Even bringing, they have to think about what programs to bring into the school and things like that. I think that there needs to be more focus on mental health, and how our district can provide that, and what that, what those steps would need to be taken. And so that was a question that was asked. And then
that'd be as a side note, a great topic for parents to discuss during the school board meeting in May, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
That's a great point.
And so that would, if you're a concerned community member and you want to talk about school safety, by all means. But if you don't have anything like right now that you're really concerned with, it'd be nice to bring in some mental health awareness pieces to the public forum and talk about how important it is to you.
Even Jennifer and I were talking about, sometimes I think that there's a little bit of desensitization when it comes to our kids about these big scary topics like school shootings. One of the things that we thought about is I feel impacted and empathetic and compassionate when I hear from a source that has experienced a school shooting. When I hear what these parents went through that have lost a child, when I hear what these high school students that witnessed their friends being killed, what they went through, what about the thought of bringing something like that to the campus to sort of let our kids see that empathy? Because it's almost like those Sarah McLachlan commercials with like the little puppies. You hear that song and you immediately have your heartstrings are pulled.
Sure.
That might be something to think about from a program standpoint.
Well, they kind of do that. Remember with drunk driving, they used to bring the car on campus and like show you the wreck, and they'd have like all the kids come out to the parking lot and show you like physically the actual wreckage from a drunk driving incident where someone had died. And they even had students play a role in it and like sit in the car and show you what like someone that died in it would look like. And so it was extremely impactful. Kids walked away like emotional, and I'm assuming, I actually know that a lot of kids would do a double take next time they're at a party and they decide to get in a car with someone who's been drinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they remember those images from that presentation.
And I think it's also having the communication repeatedly. It's like you can't show something to a kid one time and they immediately learn it.
Oh, no.
This has to be an ongoing conversation that is always happening.
Mm-hmm.
You have to talk to these kids. We also talked about preparedness when it comes to something like this. So in our situation at our campus, and I don't know how it was at your campus, but it's like we almost do the bare minimum of this shelter in place drills. And most of our kids really only know what to do for shelter in place drill if it's inside their classroom. But what if they're walking to the restroom? What if they're in the cafeteria? What if they're in PE? What if they're in the music room? What if they're just walking the hallways or going to the office? Do they know what to do?
I worked at Goddard, and I will tell you that my experience there is that they were on point with their shelter in place and emergency situation. And we had drills every 6 weeks, and a variety of them: fire drill, shelter in place, active shooter, and they were well organized. Materials were readily available, and there was a whole system that you had in order to get your kids into safety. So I will say that MISD did a good job of training the administrators, and they did a good job of training us on what to do.
So maybe it's more of a campus by campus situation that they need to make sure that each campus individually.
Yeah, my principal was extremely meticulous when it came to checking your room, your doorknobs, that your windows were covered, that you'd put the green sign underneath your door to show that your room was safe and y'all were all good.
I think too that even having conversations with teachers about, hey, this is what our procedure is. What's your opinion on that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that teachers might say, this is a stupid idea to hang a green sign out of my door saying that we're all good to go, and then a red sign if we're not. Because, pretty much everybody knows what red and green is, so don't you think an active shooter would know that? Because those are conversations that I've had with teachers. I feel like the more prepared you are, the more confident you feel. And if we're making sure that all of our campuses are confident, it might eliminate some of the fear and some of the chaos
the hiccups that happened
and even happened last week, or at the what was it, at the beginning of this week, with all the chaos and fear that was happening around ABEL. The biggest talking point that came away from the Concerned Citizens meeting was communication. So parents rightfully were angry that a situation started last Tuesday, but they weren't informed of it until Tuesday night at 6:45. That it took that long for the parents to be informed of what was happening. That wasn't and that's what they were hurt, offended, scared, and frankly mad about, is that you've had an opportunity to talk to us, but you didn't, and you waited until there's multiple phone calls coming in, and they just kept saying that it was rumors and there's nothing wrong and everything's fine.
Well, this is really interesting to me, because the communication element of what the principals do in the district is really kind of led by the communications department within the district, and they just hired a brand new lady who makes over six figures to handle all this. So you would think that MISD would be on top of this when it comes to a crisis, and developing a PR plan to assuage the fears of the parents, but it's not really happening. So I am being a little critical of that communication, because I'm not really seeing it. That if a crisis occurs at any level on the spectrum of crises, that we get this ball rolling on how we're going to communicate with the people that we serve.
Absolutely.
That we need to make sure, just because they're at home does not mean that they don't sit in fear for their children.
Absolutely. And I think too that even a situation that's really tiny, so if you have a student that's misbehaving, the fact that sometimes hours later is when you as a parent are contacted, I don't think that that's acceptable. Mm-hmm. I think that having that parental interaction and having that direct communication, and even if you're in a situation where you're still looking into the situation, we're still trying to get all the facts, we're investigating, being forthcoming with that information is what's going to help parents trust
the system. That they have someone there that's letting them know, hey, we had a specific incident. I can't discuss it in detail, but I wanted to let you know. And I'm personifying this type of communication as though they're your friend.
Yeah.
But I'm always going to keep you in the loop. You can trust me. I'm always going to make sure you know everything that's going on at my campus, because I don't want you to feel like I keep things from you.
And even to come back to the incident, one of the questions that I asked Jennifer, throughout her experience of trying to contact the so Jennifer would contact the school, and obviously she knows that she can't get specific information about the student. But in asking questions from the campus, there was absolutely no empathy for what she's going through. Never, hey, I can't offer you this info, but I just want to assure you that your student safety is our number one priority. Nothing like that was happening. And it was just I'm sorry, we can't tell you this. Nope, we can't tell you this. And they're hiding behind that cloak of FERPA without ensuring her that they have it under control, or that they're looking into it, or that safety is a priority, or apologizing that her family's having to go through this. It's like just no compassion, no empathy, just very robotic.
Stonewalled,
yeah,
almost.
Yeah, and like she did something wrong by
being concerned
and bringing forth the truth and bringing this to everyone's attention.
And as a side note, listeners, I just want to like throw this out there for you as an idea. You know, FERPA has been a hot button issue as well on our page. And so I'm going to make a call to action. If any one of you would like to do a podcast with me concerning FERPA, and I'd love to have some of you that are some educators in our system, or if you're a counselor or an administrator, I'd love to reach out to you and have some experts, and you know, we can have a panel of 5 of us and like sit down and discuss FERPA. Okay, so in closing, we would like to ask all of you to show up to the school board meetings.
Yes, so the next school board meeting is May 20th. It's at 5:30, and I believe it's at Midland Freshman. It's not going to be at Bowie this time.
Okay. And we'll confirm and post it on Midland Moms on a Mission.
Absolutely.
And at that point, I don't know, maybe Citizens has a group page that we can also share that information to.
Yeah, I just think that if you are somebody that is concerned about what you're seeing happening in our school system, even if you're somebody that's curious about what's happening in our school system, being present is what's going to make a difference, because I feel like that's when they start taking you seriously. By having active participation is, I feel like, what is going to make them stand at attention and realize, hey, we're serious about this. I know it's super intimidating the first time that you talk on that public forum. Your knees are knocking and your teeth are chattering because you want to make sure you're going to do a good job. But I honestly challenge anybody that has a specific concern, come forward and use that public forum.
Sure.
It's an absolutely great tool.
And Midland Moms on a Mission, we're here for you to support you. So if you even need me to stand up there with you or help you write your speech, or
if you want it read on your behalf, I'm sure that there's plenty of people that would be willing to read it on your behalf, because it is intimidating.
It is extremely intimidating. I think, like, when I taught high school, I did some research, and most people would rather be lit on fire than publicly speak. And so it's understandable that there is a certain level of anxiety surrounding public speaking. It is so difficult. So if you need some support, whatever you need, just reach out and message me or message any of the administrators or Midland Moms on a Mission. And I'm sure even Kristen, would be happy to answer some of your questions.
I've spoken at 2 or 3 school board meetings about different topics, and all of them are intimidating. All of them make my knees knock. All of them make people at my campus really mad. But hey, that's how it is. If I am a firm believer that if you don't know that there is a problem, that problem cannot be fixed. And so we can't continue to allow MISD to pretend to be ignorant on these topics. So if we are forthcoming with that information and saying, hey, I don't like what I'm seeing, I want to see some change, they can't pretend like, oh, I didn't know about it. I can't fix it if I don't know about it.
Sure.
So I just think that you just got to be upfront and honest and let them know.
Let them know.
And it's like you're sort of it's not even just a call, like it's almost a call to action. Like, okay, I challenge you now to fix this. I've given you the information. Now it's your responsibility, and it's your opportunity to get this situation fixed.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great message, and a great message for us to end on today. And I want to thank all the listeners. For those of you that are listening to the podcast, I encourage you to share this podcast on your personal page. I love listening to podcasts personally in the car, and also while I'm cleaning. I put my earbud in and I just listen. So I would encourage you to share it and let people know that we're here to voice some of your concerns and issues that are at the forefront of education in Midland, especially when it comes to school safety. And we appreciate your participation, and we look forward to you guys reaching out to us with your comments, questions, and concerns. And we look forward to having another podcast. I really enjoyed today's podcast with Kristen Vasquez.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we would welcome your questions or concerns. So reach out to us. Y'all take care. Y'all have a lovely weekend, and we will talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.